We begin with the growing disaster unfolding on the front lines of the war in Ukraine. A critical dam and hydroelectric power plant was destroyed today. It triggered severe flooding across the Kherson region, putting hundreds of thousands of people at risk.
Yet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Russia of blowing up the dam, but Russian officials blame the destruction on shelling from Ukrainian forces. The dam supplies water to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. Ukrainian officials warned the crisis could pose a threat to the plant's cooling system, but the UN Atomic Energy Agency insists there is no immediate risk. NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter is live in Kyiv. Molly, break all of this down for us. Ukraine is warning about the risk of an environmental disaster. This is a region that is kind of split in who controls what. Ukrainian forces took back one side of the river, Russian forces still on the other. Do we know if the dam was actually the target of whatever happened here, or was someone trying to hit the highway? What's going on?
Yeah, Allison, and I think the most important thing, what you just said, was that this is the front line, essentially. This river separates Russian troops on the eastern bank and Ukrainian civilians on the western bank. Ukrainian troops, Allison, and as you know, who have lived and survived in Kherson, who survived brutal Russian occupation, and now they are dealing with catastrophic flooding. You mentioned the environmental toll, and Ukrainian officials are going very strong on this this afternoon, really warning about the industrial pollution. And I just have some new numbers that I want to share with you guys. 150 tons of machine oil have already been leaked into that river. 300 more tons are at risk. This poses a catastrophe to the fish, to the wildlife. This is a region down in Kherson which relies on agriculture, which relies on that water from that reservoir and that river. And you also mentioned, of course, Zaporizhzhia power plant, Europe's largest nuclear power plant. And actually, I just finished an interview with Petro Cotton, you guys. He is the head of the state nuclear energy company. And I asked him what the risk was, what he was so worried about right now, what was keeping him up at night. And actually, it was interesting because a nuclear power plant to run needs both water and needs power. And what he said is right now, all 6 reactors are powered down. They're okay on the power front. So usually they would be getting power from that hydroelectric plant, which was destroyed. They're okay on that. The other big question is those cooling pools. They need water to cool down the reactors. And he says right now it is not a crisis point that those cooling pools have an adequate level of water. What could change, and this is where he says his kind of panic kicks into high gear, is that because Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is controlled by the Russians, if they just start using more power, if they turn on one of those reactors, that changes the water levels, that changes the power draw, and then we may be looking at some serious trouble, you guys.
Molly, quickly before you go, remind us who's in control of that power plant right now, and both sides appear to be pointing to the finger in terms of who is responsible for this attack.
Yeah, Russia is definitely still in control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And that's right, Vicky, you say both sides certainly are. I think on the Ukrainian side, there is no doubt from talking to officials here, talking to officials who have looked at the forensic evidence now that it has been a couple more hours. As we were going through this morning, it was real fog of war trying to figure out exactly what was happening as those videos were coming out. But you guys, the other really important part of that is, of course, there are tens of thousands of people, not just wildlife, not just the ecosystem, there are people who are trying to get evacuated as those floodwaters rise.
NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter. Molly, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.